Before any soldier, sailor, Marine, or airman ever puts on the uniform, they swear a sacred oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. It is an oath made with the knowledge that fulfilling it could cost them everything. And for many, in times of conflict and war, it does. For the next half hour, we will share stories of local veterans, their service, and the impact they left on the communities and people around them. Welcome to Voices of Valor. I'm Vince Erickson, here at the Central Texas Veterans Cemetery in Killeen. The stories of impact that we will share with you during our time over the next half hour come from and resonate right here at home. We'll lead off with a story on a veteran from our area, one of our most beloved and cherished veterans.
I'm here along the banks of the Brazos, in front of a statue of World War II hero Doris Miller, the first African-American recipient of the Navy Cross. It's a tribute to a man who displayed extraordinary bravery during the attack on Pearl Harbor and was the catalyst for crucial change in the U.S. Navy. Here's his story. An explosion in the distance, but hits us so close to home. It was the very moment when hometown hero Doris Miller was lost at sea. That's Miller, portrayed by Cuba Gooding Jr. here in the movie Pearl Harbor. Miller transformed from a low-ranking kitchen mess attendant to a remarkable warrior when the country needed him most. Without training, he courageously took over an abandoned anti-aircraft gun, successfully shooting down enemy planes, then carried many wounded sailors to safety, including the ship's captain.
To be able to kick into a moment of saying, how can I help my brothers? Because his mind was on my brothers on my ship.
I met up with Thomas Bledsoe, Miller's great-nephew, who tells me about the significance of that moment.
That's one of the things makes my great uncle's story so impactful, is that he did that in a time when there was a lot of struggle, a lot of division.
It was a Jim Crow era, and African Americans were second-class citizens. Famed poet Langston Hughes, in Beaumont to Detroit, famously writes about these difficult times for blacks during the war. You Jim Crowed me before Hitler rose to power. How long I gotta fight both Hitler and Jim Crow. In that climate, Miller did not receive public recognition, while white sailors were receiving great praise. Miller's heroic acts were only talked about in regards to an unnamed Negro, until the NAACP pressured the Navy to call Doris Miller by name.
I don't know if he understood the national impact at the time, but I definitely know he understood that he accomplished something and broke a barrier that was there.
It took 5 months, but the Navy finally recognizes Miller by awarding him the Navy Cross. But that fell short of what many believed he deserved, the Medal of Honor. 16 Medals of Honor were awarded after Pearl Harbor, but only to white men. And it's something Miller's family has been pushing for years.
The weight that my great-grandmother carried to try to push for him to get the Medal of Honor, we carried that weight embedded in us.
But to this day, his family continues their push. On November 24th, 1943, less than 2 years after Pearl Harbor, the torpedoed USS Liscum Bay sank beneath the Pacific, taking Miller with it. And he died at the age of 24, never to return home.
He's not here today to be able to see it, but we will be standing in a line of generations cheering it on and saying we knew it and he deserved it.
But even without the Medal of Honor, it doesn't take away from what he represents: extraordinary bravery, patriotism, a symbol of African American pride, and the pivotal figure in the desegregation of the U.S. Navy. But the chapter of Doris Miller is far from closed. Recognizing his heroics and lasting influence, for the first time ever, our country will name a super carrier one of the Navy's most powerful vessels after an African American. The USS Doris Miller will honor a man who not only gave everything, but also taught us how to change, for the better of all Americans.
Towering over the Texas A&M University campus, a monument to the man who literally reached the summit of bravery. We're talking about James Earl Rudder, who, remember, led Rudder's Rangers on June 6, 1944, D-Day in the invasion of Normandy, as leading the battle at Pointe du Hoc, and then later as the 16th president of this university and the vision he had to lead the university. And of course, all the life events that contributed to his legacy of greatness, and from very humble beginnings. Better to show us than the man walking into his Austin living room, Tom Hatfield, the author of Rudder from Leader to Legend, originally published in 2011.
Well, it truly was a labor of love. He stands tall. He stands tall.
A labor of love, Hatfield says. From the humble beginnings of Earl Rudder's life in the West Texas town of Eden in the early 1900s, to his World War II heroics at Pointe du Hoc, to his visionary leadership as Texas A&M's 16th president, with consistent traits at the center of Rudder's being as the keys.
Even as a schoolboy, he was recognized among his teachers and among fellow students, sort of for his humanity. The other students wanted to be around him. They wanted to be with him. He became their leader.
Evidence of Earl Rudder's leadership and accomplishment in Texas and around the world. On the A&M campus, the 110-foot Rudder Tower, a centerpiece of Rudder Plaza. In Bryan, James Earl Rudder High School, with Rudder prominently displayed in the school's foyer. In Brady, Texas, a statue of Earl Rudder. He served as a teacher, coach there, as well as mayor for 6 years. And at Pointe du Hoc, a monument with Rudder's name etched in stone for all to see. Only a fraction of proof of Rudder's impact wherever his life took him, with his character at the center. For Tom Hatfield, 15 years after the publishing of his book, there's gratitude.
I'm grateful for what he did for me, because his life is a manual of how to be a good citizen.
Tom Hatfield stressed that Major General Rudder's impact on everyone he encountered, anything he encountered, will be talked about 50 years from now and beyond.
J.C. Alston was born in 1923, about 35 miles northeast of Lubbock, and raised during the harsh Dust Bowl years. He said he could remember when they finally got electricity and stopped using kerosene lanterns. In August 1941, 18-year-old Alston joined the Navy. A few short months later, he found himself on watch aboard the USS California on the morning of December 7, 1941, when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. Being stationed in the Pacific for nearly 4 years, Alston was in Tokyo Bay in September 1945 when Japanese and U.S. officials met with other Allied commanders nearby on the USS Missouri to sign the Instrument of Surrender, which officially ended the war, just weeks after the United States dropped atom bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. After being honorably discharged a few months later, Alston returned to Lubbock, where he got married and raised a family, working for the VA for 34 years in various positions, including fire chief and police officer. Alston spent his later years as an active member of the First Baptist Church of Troy, the local American Legion Post 133, and sharing his story with school children and other veterans. J.C. Alston was 98 years old when he passed away on October 20th, 2021. 76 years to the day after his honorable discharge from the United States Navy.
Our stories of Voices of Valor continue with a man who once took to the skies, knowing it could be a one-way trip, and it was. He did not make it home, but his legacy lives on in his hometown right here in Central Texas, where people take to the skies themselves from Robert Gray's hometown airport.
Robert Gray once took to the skies, not knowing if he'd ever return to his hometown of Killeen. Today, his remains rest in the community he helped inspire. His name woven into the fabric of a city that honors his sacrifice even today for preserving their freedom. From the skies to the streets of Killeen, the lamented legacy of hometown hero Robert Gray continues to endure. And while aiming high never failed to cross Gray's mind, nothing could prepare him for what his future held. On one of the darkest days in American history, on December 7th, 1941, 2,403 Americans lost their lives at Pearl Harbor.
A Japanese attack upon Pearl Harbor naturally would mean war. Such an attack would naturally bring a counterattack.
But instead of wallowing in despair, America's resilience shined through the darkness. 80 men, including Captain Robert Gray, volunteered to take the fight to Japan for the first time, stepping onto the USS Hornet with nothing but a patriotic duty to defend America.
They did not know until they were on the Hornet what exactly they were going to be doing. Nobody walked away. They all said, no, I'm in it for the long haul.
Those men forever remembered as the Doolittle Raiders, led by Lieutenant Colonel Jimmy Doolittle. 16 modified bombers crewed by 5 men took off with only enough fuel for a one-way trip to bomb Tokyo, landing somewhere in China with no promise of ever returning home safely.
It just showed his patriotism by being part of the raid, and that he wanted to continue to support the United States in their efforts to become a great country like what we are.
The raid proved to be a resounding success, with 77 crew members surviving the mission and most, along with Captain Gray, finding refuge behind friendly lines in China.
Pretty much everybody knows what the Doolittle Raiders did, and for him to be a part of that, proud that that's my family.
However, Gray never made it back to his hometown alive. Just 6 months later, treacherous weather in the Himalayan foothills caused Gray's plane to crash, with nothing but his remains returning to Killeen. But the city refused to let Gray's namesake serve as a footnote in history books, proclaiming April 18th as Bob Gray Day, along with naming Fort Hood's military airfield as the Robert Gray Army Airfield.
There's so many boys that died that don't get that recognition, but Killeen held him up.
Preserving a legacy of freedom that, with Gray's sacrifice, will never die out. More than 8 decades after the Doolittle raid, Robert Gray's legacy still lives on here in Central Texas, even as his remains stay rooted in this community.
Standing at the base of this powerful memorial at College Station's Veterans Park. And it's not just a tribute to service. This bronze figure was meticulously crafted using the image and likeness of John Velasquez, a Vietnam veteran from Bryan and a local hero to many in the Brazos Valley. As you can see, it captures a soldier reaching out to make a rescue from outside of a helicopter. Well, right now it's time to capture some voices of valor who remember John Velasquez for all of who he was before he passed in 2024, his family.
We need to bring the wreath back up here.
John Velasquez's 3 children here at the sculpture on this day. One of their favorite places to reminisce about their dad, on his influence on their lives. Griselda, the firstborn, and second daughter Melissa. John Ed, the youngest.
He went to Vietnam and came back, thank the good Lord, and raised us, and we're here right now, and we're still following his footsteps.
That man had a heart. He was a wonderful father.
He was my hero.
In my mind and my heart, I'm sure my sister and my brother, my mom, he was our hero.
Revered, and beyond the sculpture's depiction of a dedicated soldier and Vietnam veteran, John Velasquez was also a respected businessman, owner of A&M Twin City Paint and Body in Bryan, and a longtime fixture here as the commander of Bryan's VFW Post 4692. John Velasquez's nephew Dennis succeeded John as post commander, with the same kind of reverence for John's contributions to the post and the community.
Sometimes I always thought like he was like the mayor of the town because everybody knew John Velasquez, and he was involved with so many different organizations.
John passed away in 2024, his final resting place in Bryan, mourned and remembered by the thousands he encountered and influenced. His legacy kept alive at VFW Post 4692, the Grand Hall named after him. And where we started, at the Veterans Park sculpture, his family together, filled with reverence, remembrance, and reminiscence.
He was our rock, and I will never forget my father for the things he's done for this community.
Father, leader, mentor, immortalized right here forever, to keep the legacy and impact of John Velasquez alive for all of the voices of valor who remember.
As we honor our veterans, a special thank you to those who served during the Vietnam War. I'm here at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, paying tribute to those brave men and women who never made it home, and for those who did, but carrying the lasting scars of war with them. That's U.S. Air Force C-123 aircraft during the Vietnam War, spraying more than 11 million gallons of the chemical herbicide called Agent Orange over Vietnam's forest.
A maneuver designed to peel back the cover from which the Viet Cong spring ambushes.
It began in 1962, and only in 1969 was the chemical declared highly toxic. The deadliest force against American troops would not be the Viet Cong, but America itself. While 58,000 U.S. soldiers were killed during combat, Agent Orange would later claim the lives of over 300,000 of our own service members. It's a painful reality a Central Texas family knows all too well.
You knew at some point that, it's going to get bad. With that Agent Orange,
Lewis Sims Jr., son of late Vietnam veteran Sergeant Lewis Sims, watched his father suffer through decades of aches and pains long after the war was over.
And I asked him one day, I said, I'm going to ask you something. I said, I just want to know, how do it feel? He said, it feel like fire in his whole body, actual fire.
That feeling of fire turned out to be bone cancer, linked to exposure to Agent Orange, and one that would eventually take his life.
Was I mad? Yeah. What can you do? You fought for us. You fought for your country. You made it. But the result is you catch something.
And the suffering went beyond the physical. After returning home, there was no hero's welcome.
Spitting in their face, calling them baby killers.
A crushing blow, emotionally and psychologically, for the brave men and women who fought for our country.
Thousands of demonstrators opposed to the Vietnam War.
The Vietnam War divided America. And for many veterans, the rejection and stigma they faced would cut deep. With a society too hostile to bear, Sergeant Sims, like many, withdrew from the world, his family his only solace.
My daddy always been my best hero, my best friend, period. When he
Why are you getting emotional?
He always been.
As you can see, the scars of war never truly heal. We owe Sergeant Sims and all our Vietnam veterans more than remembrance. We owe them enduring gratitude for their bravery and the lifelong battles they fought long after coming home. And it's our solemn mission to ensure history's darkest lessons are never, ever forgotten.
Fort Hood doesn't exactly hide in the background. With more than 40,000 soldiers, the Army Post has shaped this community for generations. Few symbols show that connection better than the black and gold patch of the 1st Cavalry Division. For those of us that have served in the 1st Cav, we are proud to have worn this patch. And it was one man who helped change the dynamic of the cavalry itself and fearlessly charged into life as a soldier and leader of the community afterwards. And he left behind a legacy as memorable as the patch he made famous. In the 1960s, the 1st Cav traded horses for helicopters, helping turn air mobility into a new way of war. Helicopters could move soldiers into combat, pull the wounded out, scout the battlefield, and bring firepower where tanks couldn't go. General Robert M. Shoemaker helped push that Air Cav legacy forward. A West Point graduate, infantry officer, Vietnam veteran, 1st Cav commander, 3 Corps commander, and eventually commander of U.S. Army Forces Command. That military resume is massive, but across Central Texas, many remember him just as much for what he did after the uniform. For decades, he served as a Bell County Commissioner, helped push for a Texas A&M Central Texas, supported local students, worked with veterans, and stayed connected to the families living around Fort Hood. His name also lives on at Shoemaker High School in Killeen, a daily reminder that his legacy didn't stop at the gate. And even after his death in 2017, many around Fort Hood say General Shoemaker's impact is still felt across Central Texas. General Robert M. Shoemaker helped shape the modern 1st Cavalry Division. Now, the high standards the black and gold patch represents, his leadership, his service, and his commitment to everyone around him left a legacy that still moves through Killeen, Fort Hood, and the communities surrounding it. And for everyone that's always said, once Cav, always Cav.
Stories to be told, memories to be cherished, and respect given to all of our veterans, the ones who have passed and the ones who are still with us. From all of us here at Voices of Valor, we want to thank you for watching.